Hello! In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a simple Vaadin CRUD application in few minutes. I want to create a contacts application, so here is a quick sketch showing how my application would look like. As you can see, on the left side, a list of my contacts, and then on the right side, a form displaying data about contacts when I select them from the list. And then on the bottom area, there is some manipulation buttons to modify the data about the selected contacts. So let's start by creating a new Vaadin project. I'm going to use Eclipse, but you are free to use any IDE you want. I will give a name for my project, contacts for example, as well as a name for my main UI class. Once the project is created, you can see this automatically generated Java class that contains some demo code to start with. It contains a text field, button, click listener, and so on. Just to get an idea about how these look like, let's run this on my server. I'm going to use Wildfly 10, but generally any servlet container will do the work. And here is the results. So I can start typing here and you see the execution logic of button click listener as expected. But obviously this is not how my UI should look like. That's why I'm going to go and remove this demo code from here. And I will start by introducing a horizontal split panel, which is a component container that can take two components, place them horizontally, and separate them with a splitter. And then defining grid, a data grid component to display my contacts. Then in this init method, I'll basically start setting the size of the splitter, size full, to occupy the full screen, as well as the grid to occupy the screen given by its parent layout, which is in this case the splitter, because I'm going to place the grid in the first or the left component of the splitter. And finally, the root content here is going to be the splitter itself. Let's see the results. So we can see the splitter in the middle, but the grid here is empty. In my sketch, you can see a list of contacts has been populated in the grid. So we need to use some kind of back-end service to populate the data into my grid. Actually, I have installed this back-end service on my computer. Basically, you can see the installation steps using command line or Eclipse. Detailed instructions are placed on this GitHub project. But the important part for me right now is how to include it as a Maven dependency. I will copy those dependencies and place them in my POM file under dependencies section. I will also use Vaadin CDI. That's why I will go to Vaadin add-on directory, which is a place where you can find a big set of extensions and add-on to extend the functionality of Vaadin components and functionalities. And as you can see how easy it is to start using an add-on by simply placing it as a dependency in your POM file. And since I'm going to use CDI and Java EE API, I no longer need that Java Servlet API. Similarly, here in my contacts UI, I'm going to transform this application into a CDI project and we'll get rid of these servlet annotations since it's not needed anymore. In the project homepage, it's also mentioned an example on how to get started. So this simple code is basically showing how to inject the backend service and load the data in this post-constructed method. So I'm going to use this code as it is, except that for the container, I'm going to define a bean item container of type person dot class. And for the construction part, I will just go ahead and give it the get entries directly from my backend, replacing this line. And then I need to also bind this container to the grid. So grid set container data source container. Let's see the results. Data is loaded nicely inside the grid. Things like resizing, sorting works out of the box. We can see also that all columns have been populated automatically inside the grid. But this is for the left side of my UI. But for the right side, as you can see, it's a little bit more complex. That's why I'm going to use Vaadin Designer. Vaadin Designer is a tool that allows me to easily drag and drop components visually and start using them right away. Let's call it Person Design. We can see this canvas where I can place components. I can select the components from here, and I can see the outline of how my hierarchy of components look like, as well as properties for each component. So let's start by a form. Then text fields. As you can see, you can get an immediate feedback about how the final UI would look like. For the notes, I'm going to use text area. And for the bottom area, I'm going to add them in a horizontal layout. We can also get captions for those fields. So first name. And this handy button will allow me to automatically generate Java-friendly variable name for those components so that I can reference to them later from the Java code. If I do something like spaces, then it automatically generates camel case for the variable name. For the text area, I don't need a caption. I will just give it a name or variable name. And for the horizontal layout, I can change the dimension using this shortcut tool, as well as the dimensions here. And then I can start adding buttons for the control area. Buttons are distributed equally horizontally. That's by default for horizontal layout. We can change that with expand ratio and then start to give captions for those buttons, as well as variable names to be able to reference to them from my Java code. Can also style those layouts to make them look nicer using margins and spacing. So this is how my final form should look like. Now to start using this inside my Vaadin application, we can see that this Java class has been generated automatically. I'm not supposed to make any modifications in this Java class. That's why I'm going to create a new class that extends this class. Basically, this is a way on how to use a generated Vaadin design inside your Vaadin project. Now I can reference to this view from here, person view, let's call it editor, maybe set the size full as well and add it on the right side or the second component of the splitter. Let's see the results. Form looks nice. The next step would be when I select an item here to populate the data inside the form. First of all, I'm gonna need to add a selection listener, add selection listener to the grid. And inside the selection listener, I need to somehow pass the object to the editor. So let's call editor dot, let's say, a new method called setPerson that takes the selected row from the grid. We are sure that the selected row is of a type person because of the bin item container used here. That's why it's safe to cast to person as well. And now let's create this method. Inside the person view, to be able to populate the data, I will use something called bin field group, which is a binder that can bind the data to the member fields of my class. So here in the setPerson binder.set item data source of the selected row. We also need to initialize this binder. Maybe we can initialize it inside the constructor. So binder.bind member fields of this class. Let's see the results. Looks nice. Also, we can have some functionalities for those control buttons. I will start by creating functionality for the save button. So here in the constructor again, we can say save.add click listener. And inside the event, I will basically call binder.save commit. This needs to be surrounded with a try catch, and that's basically everything to commit the changes to the Pojo object received by the binder. But this will not notify the backend. We need somehow to also notify the backend to update the Pojo. That's why maybe we can pass this through events or something similar. But here for simplicity, I'm just going to create a method here that performs this. So here, for example, save person that takes person as a parameter and calls the backend to save. After saving the person, it might be a good practice also to populate the container from the beginner. That's why maybe I can have a copy of this code. Let's call it, for example, refresh grid, and use it here one more time. And finally, it would be nice to select the new item from the grid after refreshing it, to keep the selection after refreshing the container. Now, the final step would be here, getting the UI instance and then casting this to the type of my UI, which is contacts UI, and then call the method save person. The item here will be the one found in the binder, so binder.get item data source dot get bean. Let's see the results. Now, if I start to make modifications here, for example, we can see that the row has been updated. Similarly, we can add more functionalities to the cancel and delete button. And that's it. A full stack web application in just few minutes. Thank you for watching. And if you want to see the final application after adding some more theming and more functionalities, please check the GitHub link below.